Hi everyone, it's Margaret Manning here. Welcome to 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. My guest today is Jane Duncan Rogers. Jane has an organization called Before I Go Solutions, and she is a nonprofit organization that helps people to create and design their end-of-life plan. It sounds like a very interesting topic, and I'm really glad to have her here because as a result of her own personal experience, Jane actually has written a book which is called Before I Go, The Essential Guide to Creating an End-of-Life Plan, Good End-of-Life Plan. And it's really an important element. We've talked about it in some other interviews today. And I wanted her to go through with us the things that you have to think about when you're creating this end-of-life plan. What are some of the things you have to, questions you have to ask yourself? So welcome, Jane. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here. Yes, there are, if you're coming to this completely fresh and you never really thought about this before, especially, then there are some general things that are useful to think about that you can start thinking about right now before you even do anything else about your end-of-life plan. And the first one is to consider what are your values about life and death. So that's really what is valuable to you about living. You know, what does quality of life mean to you? You need to be clear about what's really important to us about in life and in death as well.
Yes.
The second thing to think about is right now, without having thought about this before, who could you talk to about this subject? Right. Who could you talk to about dying or death or grief or bereavement or any of this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Because it's quite hard to make a really good end-of-life plan without having conversations with the relevant people, whoever they might be. It might be a spouse or a partner, it might be children, it might be stepchildren, grandchildren, whatever. It might be friends. So depending on what your answer is to that question, you're going to have some homework or some preparation to do. And actually in the book, there's a whole chapter about talking about this and how to do it in an easy, relatively easy way, given that it's a difficult topic. The third thing is if you don't have children, or for whatever reason your children, you're not in contact with them, or they're on the other side of the world, or whatever it is, what are you going to do? You need to think about this in advance because it's different if you don't have children. I don't have children, therefore I've had to think about this separately.
Yes.
And it might require some action now. When I've posed that question to some people who don't have kids, who actually don't have kids at all, they have made changes in their lives which enable them to be more and more part of a community. So that the community becomes more of their family, and that's become really important. So there's all sorts of things again, and there's a chapter in the book about that as well. And
on that note, Jane, by the way, sorry to interrupt you, but that's a really, really important point for a lot of women in our community, because if people don't have children, that's one whole category, but there's a lot of women who have children and they're for whatever reason estranged from them. Yeah. And this is becoming actually quite a challenging situation, because I think that the kids are now moving away from home more than they did, and in the distance you just lose touch, and you have to work at keeping a family close together when one person lives in Australia and the other lives in England. So I think that social media and just the way we are moving around the world has made this isolation from your family even more significant. So I think that really does highlight the need for what you're doing.
Yeah, and even if you don't have immediate family, and even if your family are not the people with whom you want, if you don't want them to have anything to do with your death, and that's okay.
Yes.
But the way we've always done it will kick in, so your family will get something to do with your death unless you organize it otherwise. Yes. But if we think about the essence of family, of a good family connection being that we're with loving people who care for us and who want to do the best for us, then we can have that with our friends and our community, no doubt about it. But we have to start to put that in place now in terms of end-of-life plans. So that's why it's raised in this. The last thing, or one of the other things that I think is really important, is to consider what are your beliefs about bodies. Now, again, people don't even want to think about bodies, especially not dead bodies, but here we are, we've got an alive one, there's you, an alive one, and me. And when my husband died, which was about 6 years ago now, I was with him when he died, and I saw very clearly that what was left on the bed after he had died was actually an empty bag that looked like him.
Yes, so
that's
true.
all it was. And that really helped me understand that who he was just somewhere else. It didn't make it any less painful, and it was incredibly painful, as some of the people watching, I'm sure, will identify with. But it helped to know that that I then developed my own beliefs about bodies that really helped in the future afterwards to come to terms with the fact that the body had died, but who he was had not.
You're bringing, no, I shouldn't even go here with you because, but I'm sure people at home are. And I think that this is really important, that we've got people watching us who are probably in tears right now because they have a memory associated with this. And I do with my mom, because I got to the hospital, I was only 19, and I got to the hospital after she had died. And I don't know whether it was that, I was about to faint or I was just very confused, but I could see a glow around her body, like it was just that something was not in the body anymore. It was outside the body, and it could have just been my own illusion, my own desire to still have a vibration of her there. But, but it's really powerful to think that whatever it was is no longer, whatever was her is no longer there. That's a hard concept for a young person or anyone really. So I'm glad you raised that.
It's a very hard concept. But when I wrote my first book, Gifted by Grief, a lot of that book was about me exploring what was the difference between a dead body, i.e. Philip's body, without anything in it, and this body here that has what I call me in it. It's
But this is interesting. I mean, you and I don't know each other that well. I mean, we have met in person by chance in Scotland, but we're digging into a conversation here. It didn't take us long once we gave ourselves permission, to be able to share that kind of deep memory. And I think that's the hardest thing with families, is that we protect them from our true feelings, and we think they won't want to hear.
Yeah, that's true.
They won't want to talk.
So often I've discovered in my work with people that when they do pluck up the courage and they do kind of like open the door on death, so to speak, that actually the people in that room or their relatives or whoever it is they have also been wanting to do this but not knowing how to do it.
Yes.
They've also they're glad that the subject has been aired, if you like. And I find that quite a lot, more often than not, that people are pleasantly surprised once somebody has had the courage to broach the subject.
Yes.
People do actually want to talk about it and can talk about it. It doesn't always happen, of course, and there are ways around that, which I talk about in my book. But my feeling about this is that particularly with the baby boom generation, and particularly with them, their parents coming towards the end of their life, we are waiting to just open up around this subject. That's my feeling, and I hope to facilitate that.
Well, you are doing an amazing job. I mean, your website is beforeigosolutions.com. You've written a book about your experience with your husband, which was very practical, the specific questions that you asked him and shared with him as he died. And then you've written this book which gives people a roadmap, and gives them a sense of kind of nourishment and support as they dip their toe in this super delicate world. And so I hope to everyone that's listening that, here we are, I'm smiling, and Jane's smiling, we're having a chat, but we know this is heavy, and we know that, everyone's experience of disability and illness and, just life is different. And I don't want you for a minute to think that we're not taking it super seriously is not the word. It's more with heart, with understanding and love for everyone. So I don't mean to make apologies for us being smiling and happy, but it's just want you to know that we're here for you and understand what you might be going through. It's important. It's a big topic. Thank you, Jen. Is there anything you want to finish? I mean, I've been chatting a bit a lot this time. You brought so much out in my own experience. How would you?
No, it's fine. I think, no, it's fine at the moment. I think, you know, there's loads more I could say, frankly, but
you do in a book.
Yeah. Short time. And, you know, each of those questions that I've introduced have been things they're big areas, and we need to, and yeah, just to follow on from what you said, we really need to treat ourselves and the people that we teach, that we speak to around this, with a great deal of tenderness and a great deal of kindness and compassion and warmth and love, because it is tender, you know, it really is tender. This whole thing about life and death, one minute you're here, the next minute you're not. Yeah. It's like, yeah, okay, so let's just be really kind about it. I think that's the thing.
No, you know, and we have a very kind community. I think we have a group of women who are here for each other. So leave your thoughts in the section below. Feel safe that you're going to be amongst friends. And if you see someone that needs some help, just reach out and give them a hug, or just, you know, do a little heart, or just something to let them know you're thinking about it. And Jen, I cannot thank you enough for your for the work you're doing, for the contribution you're making to this conversation. So thank you again for being here. Very appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our 60andMe YouTube channel and also visit our website. We are a strong and dynamic community of women over 60. We're challenging aging stereotypes, and every day we share fascinating stories, interesting questions, and great conversation.